It can be trauma from just being placed in a new home. It can be trauma due to abuse and neglect before they were removed from the home. It can be trauma from moving from home to home while in foster care. It can be trauma with the bio kids in the home. It can be so many different ways.
Hello, and welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions. We are still doing outpatient mental health counseling services for people of all ages, children and adults. And we're doing those through telehealth still, through the computer or on phone. And we are still doing those in our office and in schools as well.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am the Vice President at Heart and Solutions in charge of the BHIS department. So I supervise the program where we go in-home and work with children ages 4 through 18 on different behavioral skills. And then we can also do that in telehealth, in schools, at home and in the office as well. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
So we post every Sunday night at 5 p.m. Central. So we always encourage you, just batch up your laundry or your cooking for the week or your miles for the week, whatever it is that you just hate doing, and put on a podcast and just batch it up. And we'll be doing the same thing. So you'll know you're not the only person putting together outfits for the week. And that gives you the entire week to get connected with your counselor or to get connected with any of our guests from that week's show. So today we have Angela Downing with us. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So Angela comes from Cedar Rapids in Iowa, or lives in Cedar Rapids in Iowa, and she is the Director of Programs and Events at Families Helping Families of Iowa. This is a program that is near and dear to my heart as a human and also professionally, and the events, I have to say, are incredible that you guys put on. They're so fun. So we are big fans of Families Helping Families of Iowa, and we are very, very excited to hear about the services that you guys do and also your role there with the organization. So can you tell us a little bit about Families Helping Families and what it is that you guys do for the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So Families Helping Families is a small nonprofit located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but we serve the entire state. We serve all 99 counties in the state of Iowa, and we do that by having things like clothing closet, shoe vouchers, haircut vouchers, activity scholarships, tutoring scholarships. We do a big, huge Christmas event, a big, huge back to school rally event, and just really try to help kids who are living in foster care live a more average life as they are living in a situation that is not their fault, and just try to come alongside them and help them just feel a little bit more quote unquote normal. And so most of the programs that we do remotely. They come through my email and I'm able to mail or email or whatever. But we have a clothing closet here in Cedar Rapids. So if they're close to Cedar Rapids, they come and shop the closet and get whatever they need for free.
Wow, so many free services and how wonderful. So this is available to children who are currently in foster care, but also children who have been adopted within the state as well?
So some of our programs are for kids who are adopted as well. All of our programs are for children who are currently living in foster homes. And then we always say, basically the programs that aren't as expensive for us to execute, we do for kids who are adopted. So our clothing closet is still for kids who are adopted in foster care. Haircut vouchers are, and then they can come to our events, our back to school rally and our Christmas event, so that we try to help. There is kind of this underlying assumption that everybody who adopts a child comes into it with the finances. That's not necessarily true, as we see a lot of relative placement adoptions, but there are less services just due to our funding for kids once they've been adopted.
Absolutely. And these challenges, these kind of places where you guys are coming in and saying, hey, this is an adjustment for everybody involved. And so whether I'm adopting a child and I know that I'm adopting that child, or this child comes and lives with me for 3 years and I don't know how long this child is going to be with me, and they may be with me forever. That adjustment in a family's budget and in a family's time and energy and availability is absolutely well worth it. But it's an adjustment, and it's difficult to fit all of those puzzle pieces together. And so just something like haircuts, where if you've got one child and you're used to that as a budget, right? Or say you've never had a child before and you find yourself in the care of your niece or nephew, having those resources available, it's just a wonderful thing. It just allows for people to kind of have more flow in something that's already challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do people usually get connected with you guys?
We hear this more often than not, that people don't know we exist until they need us, which makes sense if you're using our services. We don't want that to be the case if you would like to donate to us. But if you need our services, a lot of times it's through DHS or Four Oaks. Those are two local, well, they're around the state. They are more involved in the removal of the children. And so when the kids are placed in a new home, a lot of times they come with no clothes on, or whatever they're wearing. So DHS or Four Oaks will generally refer them to us for the clothing closet first, and then we have the conversation about what else is available. If we're not local and coming to Cedar Rapids because they live, let's say, in Sioux City, we have some partnerships where they'll kind of promote us if they hear of it, but there's still just a lack of awareness around the state about what we do and how we can help all kids. So we're really working hard on trying to increase that.
And so if somebody wants to get involved in terms of donations or in terms of supporting your organization, how would somebody do that? And what kinds of things are you looking for in terms of people who want to get involved and help?
So we have several different ways that you can get involved. I would say the number one need is always money. And it's tacky to say, but money makes things, I mean, it makes the world go round, right? So we need money to have the doors open, and where there's two of us on staff or just in a small nonprofit, but to make sure that we're here to execute the programs. But along with that, our clothing closet, we always take gently used clothes, and we say gently used, we mean gently used. These kids deserve to feel dignity and good about themselves when they go to school or hang out with their peers, and it should not. I just really don't like the idea that something is better than nothing. I believe that kids deserve to look and feel good about themselves. And so, why add any other barriers to their current situation? So, gently used clothes and shoes, only new socks and underwear. And then we do take some infant items like high chairs, strollers, high chairs. I said high chairs, high chairs, strollers, pack and plays, um, and car seats, so that those large ticket items are taken care of, and those can be dropped off anytime that we're open. Besides that, we do collections of toys at Christmas time, brand new toys. We do a collection of brand new school supplies. Again, we always ask those be new because we believe that kids deserve the best. And so those are the things that we take on a regular basis.
I love the value that you guys are putting on the dignity of the child,
Yeah.
and the removal of barriers that could otherwise be there. And even when you were talking about the clothing closet, you used the word shop, right? And so you said they can come and shop the clothing closet, which again, I think to me just speaks to that value of families helping families, where it is about choice, and it's about being able to provide that experience of, I'm going to go in here, but I'm going to pick out what I want to wear, and knowing that the clothes that they're going to go pick out are going to be clothing that they can wear to school, and limit some of that potential shame that can come with those things, because there's so much opportunity for shame, and a sense of not belonging already when it comes to foster placement. And so removing any of those pieces, even when it comes to clothing and haircuts, and allowing for that belonging to naturally occur, that will naturally occur, we're just taking out some of those barriers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so there's also scholarships for tutoring.
So we partner with tutors, not they don't donate their time and talent, but we ask for them to take it at a significantly lower price. So we have a budget of about $20,000 for this program, and a lot of tutors like Sylvan will give us an invoice for one session for a child for $20,000. So we can't afford to do it through a place like Sylvan. So we ask for teachers or other donors. Educated people to come alongside students that are in college, things like that. It's just harder for us to execute this one because we have to find the tutor and then they have to do the evaluation and things like that. But we do offer the program, and it's one I'd like to see grow because there's just so much need. It gets a little bit complicated in foster care because the kids there's certain permissions. So certain bio parents have to sign off on certain things. It just depends on the case. Certain foster parents have to, and then there's evaluations. And sometimes they want the kiddos to be on an IEP, which then makes things a little bit more complicated because maybe the IEP will get them what they need. And so really trying to figure out, we're still in the like thick of figuring out, is there a streamlined process that we should attack each time somebody applies? Or do we need to, get everybody involved to see how to best make it work for the kiddo. So it's a little bit more complicated than we originally thought. We thought we'll just pay for tutoring, help them get caught up because statistically kids in foster care are further behind in school. That's just due to trauma. It's due to them moving around. It might be due to a lack of some neglect when they were younger and not getting starting school at the same pace as some of their peers. There can be learning disabilities, all sorts of things we certainly see.
Absolutely. And that service goes all the way up to older teens as well, it sounds like.
But yeah, we serve basically they just have to be school aged. So
In my mind, you guys do so many other services, and it's so great to hear about them, and the things that you guys can do virtually as well to support those families and those children. But one of the main ways I think that a lot of people and other community organizations know of you guys is your events. You guys have great events, and you're spreading awareness and you're fundraising and you're doing all kinds of things. Can you tell us more about these events? Because you are planning them, right? You're the planner, you're the
yeah,
coordinator. These are
it's
your
actually kind of
events, not
funny.
all.
I love planning events, and I didn't realize how much I loved them until I took this role. In fact, it's almost funny because I have a friend whose son was in an accident recently, and I wanted to put on a fundraiser, and she said, "Please don't tell me you're going to have a bounce house there because you always have bounce houses at your events." And I was like, "No, not for him. He's 22, so no need for the bounce house for this guy." But so yes, we do two big events, and then we also had we in the past we did a silent auction, then we try to do like a tasting event, and that kind of was right before COVID. It didn't quite take off, and then COVID came, so that changed a lot of things. But the big two events that we plan are our back to school rally, where kids can come and they get to actually pick out a backpack, a brand new backpack, and walk through and pick out the supplies off of their lists and build their own backpack, which I just think is so fun. I may be a nerd, but I loved going and picking out like what color notebooks I wanted
Yeah.
and what color pens I wanted and packing them in my pencil pouch and all that stuff. So it just makes it a little bit more fun for, if you're going back to school, at least you can pick out your supplies. But then we also do like hot dogs and chips and popcorn and cookies. And then we had a dunk tank, which was a huge success. The poor kid who was on the dunk tank last, he got dunked so much. I eventually just had to go tell the kids, please stop pushing the button. Like he would like crawl out and go right back in. So he's one of our volunteer sons. He kind of got roped into it. But so, and then we have a bounce house. So we just try to make it a load of fun for them. And then the other main event that we do is for Christmas. What I love about how we do this event is we collect brand new toys and we don't collect them specific to the child. So kids start registering, but we don't ask them specifically what they want. We collect a wide variety of gifts for newborns through teenagers, which teenagers are a little bit harder, tend to get like gift cards, hoodies, makeup, so that kind of stuff. Um, and we don't wrap them, and we take them out to Hawkeye Downs, and we have a huge event, and we have one side of Hawkeye Downs, we call it Santa's Workshop. And so the kids walk through these big doors after they see Santa, and they don't get to take their caregivers in. They get to go in all by themselves with a helper, and they get to walk to an area where toys are in their age range, and they just pick out what they like. Like, there's nobody steering them one way. There's no caregiver in the background, like, don't get the good litter, which they don't like that part. But we did have a kid come out with a sword one time, like a plastic sword, and the caregiver was like, absolutely not. So you have to be a little bit careful. But I love that they don't open it and not maybe like it. They pick what they want. Like, we had a little girl last year. She was probably 3, and she picked out this little bus that was probably $6 or $7. Now, I know that most caregivers, if they would have went in there with her, should like get that big $50 item or whatever in the back. But what that little girl wanted was the bus, and she picked out the bus. And so yeah, so that event is super fun. Santa's there, cookies, hot cocos, a DJ. We have
Mhm.
activity tables, crafts, all that stuff. So it's a huge undertaking. Yes, I plan them. There's 2 of us on staff, and then it's about 100 volunteers. So really couldn't do this event without our volunteers.
That's fun.
That is so fun. And I think it goes back to, wanting to provide those experiences. It's not just about uh, giving items or giving things, because yes, things are necessary and things are useful and helpful. But what you guys are doing, the way that you are distributing the useful, helpful things, is to also provide these experiences. And those
Yeah,
experiences are choice.
that's what I like about Winter Wonderland. It's a little bit different with the Christmas gifts is we actually open that one up to the bio children in the home as well. So if you have a family and you bring in a couple adopted kiddos, we bring the bio kids are allowed to attend and get gifts at the same time they register. But so that can be a shared experience with their home. We know that it's easy to feel a little bit on the outside, especially if you get a new placement and you weren't even planning on buying Christmas gifts. They can come in and really share that experience with their caregivers. So that's a little bit different. The rest of our programs, it gets confusing for people, and I understand because nothing else is open to bio children, but that's one we do.
Oh yeah, that's great to know too, because it can be that family experience, and taking a family, if you've got 2 biological children and you have adopted or you're fostering a sibling set of 3, now going to see Santa is a whole nother kind of undertaking. Right now, Christmas presents are it's more than double your budget, and so everything gets a little bit more challenging. And again, well worth it, but in the meantime, right, getting through that first Christmas or that second Christmas, until that kind of starts to become the flow and the routine of the family in the year. Um, and just beautiful to be able to have the adopted children or the children kiddos in foster care do the same thing as the biological kiddos in the family
Yep.
for that Christmas event. That's beautiful. So volunteers are mainly in the Cedar Rapids area.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of our volunteers are either coming in and sorting clothes and hanging them in our clothing closet, or they're helping with our events. So we don't have a lot of other events on a regular basis, but when they do come, when those volunteer needs arise, we definitely are mostly people that are close by.
Absolutely. So I know that that you guys at Families Helping Families are very often referring families and parents and children for counseling. And I think it's wonderful because any kind of adjustment, even very positive adjustments, like going from foster placement to being adopted by your foster family, that's a huge change, and there's loss associated with that, even in the most happy of circumstances or situations. Can you tell us about that and the role that counseling plays with the families that you're working with?
Absolutely. So the one thing that we talk the most about here that we're trying to figure out how to better serve is the mental health piece of foster care. And that is such a huge umbrella because there's so many different types of trauma that we see for these kiddos. That trauma can be It ranges. It can be trauma from just being placed in a new home. It can be trauma due to abuse and neglect before they were removed from the home. It can be trauma from moving from home to home while in foster care. It can be trauma with the bio kids in the home. It can be so many different ways. We've seen food insecurity trauma. We've seen trust issues, or lack of trust. Honestly, there are kids that have just no barriers whatsoever to strangers, no healthy boundaries when it comes to attachment. um, so we see the need so greatly in foster care. And the thing we hear the most in our office is that people have a hard time finding the help that they need, within not just the Cedar Rapids community, but all areas because of insurance or bio parents signing off, or just time, like you mentioned earlier. Uh, One thing that people don't think about when it comes to kids in foster care is they have a lot of appointments. They have it depends on the situation, but they may have to go visit a child welfare center when they first get placed. They will have visits with their caseworker. They will have visits with their bio parents. They will have um, then they have, their own schedules plus therapy appointments a lot of times. And so it's a huge time commitment for foster families to take in kids, but the kids are also very busy with appointments too. And then if you have other children in your home, you have to manage those things too. So I'm just going all around the place here, but I would just say that there are certain barriers that keep people from getting the help that they need, but we see the need so greatly with these kids.
Absolutely. There are so many barriers with counseling in general, but especially when people are expanding their family and there are all of these appointments happening, and children are so scheduled as it is. And then, and the sports and after school stuff. And it can just feel like in a family, like you're just going all the time. And then having these other appointments of visiting biological parents and all of these adjustments that happen can be very, very difficult to get that support in on a consistent and regular basis. So, it's absolutely, I love that you guys refer for counseling, and, that telehealth is now available. And so that can make such a difference, especially older kiddos, adolescents. It can be so difficult, and adolescents are so scheduled out. They have so much going on. And so the ability to be able to do their counseling session once a week on the phone in their own house where nobody's going to see them, or on the computer, has been such a tremendous benefit to our state and our country for mental health care, to have that, because it does take away one of the barriers.
Oh yeah, personally, I have a kiddo who is who sees a therapist, and I will tell you, having him be able to go and he's 13, so he can't drive himself, but I wish he could. And then my schedule, he meets all summer. He would just get out his laptop or even his phone and have his therapy appointment. It was on his phone. It sent him a reminder. He could go to his room. He had the privacy he wanted, and it eased up my schedule from having to take time off from work to take him there. And so it was great. I was like, I'm sure there's sometimes the connection missing between meeting one on one, but the convenience of missing or meeting, virtually was so nice. I was like, text him, your therapy's coming up 10 minutes, get to your room. It was great.
Absolutely. And, some kiddos at that age too, they kind of do a hybrid, so instead of having to go every single week and pack up all the kids and bring them all there, and then you got to get them dinner afterwards, right?
Right.
So now you're doing the drive through and all of that. It can get real expensive money wise and time wise to leave the house every single week and go do that. But if you're doing it once a month instead in person in the office, and then the other 2 or 3 weeks of the month doing that over the computer, can really
Yeah,
help to ease some of that as well.
absolutely.
So now, and you've had a great counseling experience, but you've also had a not so great counseling
Yes.
experience before. Can you tell us about those? We love hearing bad counseling experiences.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's natural. We all like hearing the bad stories more than like hearing the good stories sometimes, right? Okay. So I would say we'll start with the good then. So I would say a good therapist. My son, he has what's called ODD, and he sees to be his therapist. He's used to, we've been through the gamut of therapy for him. He did a program called Total Child. So he had an average life until second grade, and for whatever reason, in second grade, he just started behaving differently, and it was very frustrating because I couldn't figure out what trauma happened or what changed all of a sudden. So we were going through the rigmarole and I was getting a lot of calls from the school and his daycare to pick him up and bring, and I'm like, I can't do this all the time. I was a single parent. I'm like, someone's got to figure out how to keep this child at school because I can't get him all the time. Um, and so he started total child. And so we had a therapist at his school. He had a therapist at home. We did family therapy. And I learned a lot during that time because I knew that my natural reaction, good or bad, generally bad, is to yell. So when I get frustrated with him, I my first reaction was to yell, and that wasn't working, and I knew it wasn't working, and so I wanted to talk to a therapist and say, okay, how can I meet him somewhere? Where can we meet so that I'm not escalating and he's not escalating? That one of us is at least trying to get the other one to calm down. And so we did silly things like, blow out your hot cocoa and squeeze your lemons and all these things that, in hindsight seem silly, but there have been times where I'm like, go squeeze your lemons somewhere, please, because you're going to make me lose my mind. But
Yeah.
we it was very helpful because I knew that there were things that I wasn't doing right. And so he's still in therapy. He doesn't go as often. He goes every 2 weeks at this point. We're trying out a new therapist. But on the flip side, I would say the bad side of therapy that we have had is the turnover. I'm going to be honest, there have been so many therapists that he has had. And he's probably on his fourth in the last 4 years. And so it's really hard to believe in the system or that it works if he spends the time building that relationship and then that relationship ends and then he's off to a new person. And he's even made comments, he's 13. What's the point? They're going to leave, and logically, I understand that the profession is difficult and hard, and I don't hold it against the therapist. But sometimes I feel like, man, I'm doing everything I can to help my kid. And this is, one more thing that just keeps failing him, and it's not all on a therapist, but I definitely felt like now, I mean, when we see these kids in foster care that move from home to home, like they're already seeing different therapists or not going back to therapy. But then, I'm like, I'm doing everything I can to make my kiddo make it work for him. And and then he would start struggling. And obviously it wasn't like a one size fits all thing, but do we even try again? Because I wasn't seeing the direct results either way for a little bit, and then it would get better. And I'm rambling, but I just feel like that was one thing that was definitely hard for me, was to figure out, do we want to keep doing all the work if it's just going to be another person that leaves him,
Yeah, that can be so difficult, and it is a difficult field, and
Yeah.
there is a lot of movement in this field. And I think that a lot of times when we think about therapy, like we're looking for stability, we're looking for that, that rock in our lives, and having the experience of and having the understanding of, my therapist is my therapist, but they're not my rock. My rock has to be my mom, right? My rock has to be my sister, my partner, my child, whoever it is. But it is very difficult because counseling has this, because it is so based on the relationship. And because the relationship can take so long to build, then it can feel like, "Ugh, I'm building this relationship, or my child is building this relationship." And then it feels like, well, did I waste all that time? Right? Did I waste all that time going to sessions and having my child be vulnerable and take risks, relationship risks, right? Of sharing and letting somebody understand what's going on. And that can be so difficult when it feels like, okay, we're doing this, and the end result goal is that they're going to be with them till they're 18,
Yeah.
and it's so hard because those changes can happen so quickly in this field too.
Yeah. I mean, we've had many times where I've gotten an email and within 24 hours that person is no longer there. And I'm like, not many
Yeah.
times, but twice. And you just go, okay, so I don't know who he's going to see next. And yeah, it's
Yes.
more about the relationship building. It's you take the time to go through,
Mhm.
and then you sit with a new person. You're like, okay, where do I start? Because you feel like you explain the same things over again and kind of see. And obviously, as he's getting older, certain things change. But yeah, I think that was probably more the most frustrating part of this whole process. Has just been I don't expect that a therapist owes my kid anything more than they have their own lives and all those things. But I just felt like, okay, one more thing that's just going to keep him from attaching a little bit, from wanting to do the work, because it's work to do mental health care. Um, and even like my husband, he's kind of the thought where I'll go to therapy for a while. Maybe we'll touch on this, but I'll go to therapy for a while, and once things are better, I'm going to stop going to therapy. And so that gets frustrating because he's like, I guess I need to go back, and I'm like, I think you need to keep going, is what I think. But it's just one of those things where you hear, oh, I went until I felt better, and then like, okay, well, we all have something. We all have something to work on.
Absolutely. We never know when the next challenge is going to happen in our lives, and every day brings that next challenge. And
Mhm.
so if we've got a relationship going with a counselor and things are going well and we're hitting our goals and we're feeling good, and absolutely we want to keep that going because we don't know what next month will bring. We don't know what next week will bring or tomorrow. And that idea of starting over, right? The frustrations and the challenges of starting over. It's very, very difficult when it's not our choice to start over with a new counselor, right? And so what I hear you saying is like, I don't want to do that voluntarily. Like, I don't want to start over voluntarily, especially starting over when things are starting to need more support and when things are starting to feel a little bit less in control or in my grasp, right? I don't want to be doing all that work to start out with during that time. I want to have done it and then have that relationship to kind of be there for when the next thing comes. So many times that therapeutic relationship, if done well, it mirrors all of the relationships in our lives, right? All of the people that are going to come and go from our lives. And when we've got, attachment wounds, right, from childhood especially, it can be very, very difficult. Not just therapists, but anybody, right? It becomes one of our triggers, and it's personally triggering to. For example, I know that when I lose people in my life, and not necessarily saying like they've passed away, like when I don't see them anymore, right? Um, I know that's difficult for humans in general, but I know that when we've got attachment wounds, that can become we can feel that a lot more deeply, and that can become a personal trigger for us. And so counseling though can so mirror that experience of life and of even I've got a 6-year-old, and she started first grade and she loves first grade and she loves her teacher. She misses her kindergarten teacher, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's that same thing.
Yep.
Even something like that is just such a natural transition in our lives. We still feel that loss and we still feel that grief. And if it's triggering that past trauma, we're going to feel that in a much different way
Sure.
than maybe somebody else might who had that healthy attachment. And then it was like, okay, great to see you. I'm, moving on.
Right.
And because when we've got healthy attachments, it's not that we believe or trust in the person that we're building the attachment with. It's that we trust and believe in ourselves and our ability to build healthy attachments with the next person. So in my daughter's case, I'm not, while the mom part of me wants to be like, oh, you should just stay in Mrs. Nopin's class forever because she was the best teacher ever. But another part of me is glad because this is another opportunity for her to practice building healthy attachments
Yes.
and to practice ending a healthy attachment with a safe person. And gosh, we feel the things we need to practice, and we feel the things that we need to be more skilled at. I can juggle 3 balls, but when I try to juggle 5 balls, that's painful.
Sure.
that is painful for me. I gotta think about it, everything. But with 3 balls, it's like, okay, I've got this. And that's kind of how that, people coming and people going in our lives, we get that. It doesn't get easier to lose people, but we get better. We build that skill and that
Yeah, I mean, it is a
confidence.
skill. Yeah, it is a skill that you have to learn and you have to practice, right? Because it is as a human being, you're going to build relationships and some are not always going to work out and some are not, I think that's hard, especially when you have a prepubescent, teenager who, is already hormonal and doesn't always think clearly. Um, so I worry a little bit more just because I know that chemically he's just not as logical at this point in his life. And so I'm like, okay, I need to know that you are not going to swing super high or super low either way, because I have an 8-year-old daughter who also loved her teacher last year and doesn't like change. And over the summer, her bestie was at a different daycare and made new friends. And then school started and she feels left out because her best friend is now has other friends. And so I was trying to talk to her about how this is just a part of life and you can either try to join in and make those same friends or you find your own new group of friends. But, change is hard and people don't like it. And especially when you feel like especially some people tend to cling on to those relationships more than others, so I'm like trying to walk her through, like there will be other friends and she's still a good friend, but you can't be her only friend. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's painful, but it's an opportunity to practice because the more that, our little ones can go, okay, if my friend has other friends that they've made over the summer, I don't have to feel that as a threat because I know that I can make other friends too. I know that I can continue and maintain that relationship. I know how only because I've had opportunity to do it.
right.
So I've had pain, but being able to take that pain and go, okay, now I know how to do. I did make a friend. How did that happen? So
Right.
being able to build on that is so. But absolutely, as a parent, it's so painful to witness our children experience any pain, and sometimes it can feel more pain. I mean. Maybe it's just loss of memory from when I was a child, but some things my daughter goes through, I remember going through, and I remember not feeling it as much as I do seeing her go through it. I think we kind of go through it with a different lens, and it can be so painful, and we want to protect them so badly, and it just is so difficult. So I love what you're talking about like family service too, and everything that you learned also, because gosh, as parents, we just want to like make it better. We just want to like fix it for
Give them
them.
all the tools that they could go out and be successful, healthy adults in the world,
Absolutely.
out
Yeah.
of my house. I mean,
Yeah. I'm going to do this for you now, so I'm not
right.
doing it in 30 years.
Correct. When you're living in my basement and we're trying to figure out why you can't function. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's great. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. It can be such a double-edged sword, right? Like you talked about having a great counseling experience and seeing like progress and seeing like we're learning things, we're implementing new things. And then on the other side of it, having that loss that we can have with it. Or also having that plateauing also, right? Of going like, I like it when I can see progress. Like I like it when I can look at the last 3 months and go, oh my gosh, 3 months ago, we were fighting 8 times a day, right? We'd have 4 fights before school and 4 fights after school. And here we are 3 months later, and we're having like 2 fights a day. right? And that like we love seeing that progress. And that can be such a double-edged sword too, because once we start to kind of plateau out, we go, well, this now feels normal. Right? So
Right.
like now where I wanted to be feels normal. So I'm gonna be where I want to be now.
Or
Right? So
just like,
it's so
or
hard.
I think for me, it's like, okay, I'm so used to like personally my kiddo cycling. And so he'll do really well, then he'll struggle for a while. And so when things are going well, like the first few weeks of school have been great. And so there's this like, I'm excited, I'm so proud of you. But in my head, the things I can't say out loud are, I'm waiting for the ball to drop because this is what tends to happen. And so I don't want to discourage him or say anything, negative. And I keep thinking this is going to be the year, but I also don't want to set myself up for failure, or that sometimes my emotions on his behavior make me feel like I'm failing or succeeding as a parent, which has definitely been something that I've learned, as he's doing well, I'm like, oh man, we're killing it. We've got this down. We know what we're doing. All this work has been worth it. And then when he's struggling, I go, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like we're doing all the things, So I've realized that I don't express those things to him, but I certainly feel that myself. It's like, okay, is it all worth it when it's worth it when it's going well? And is it worth it when it's not going well? Across the board with various things, but specifically with therapy, you just everybody thinks it's going to be a quick fix, or when things are going well for a period of time, is that period of time because things are well and we've adjusted and we're moving past that, or are we just holding steady, waiting for the next thing? So that's where I feel like, it can be kind of blurry.
It is because we can't see the lows we haven't experienced. So, we can see the low we're in, but we don't know how low that low might have been,
Sure.
right? Or if it might have been the same. We don't know. And we can see the highs that we're in, the high points and the highlights, but we can't see that might have been a low otherwise, right? Or it might have been the same. We just don't know. And what you're talking about in terms of like feeling like, okay, I think that our school system, at least mine when growing up, really taught me something I had to unlearn, which was energy and effort equals results.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in
My
parenting,
diet sometimes too.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like energy and effort in doesn't equal results out. It just doesn't. And we want it to so badly because
Yeah.
I would put in and we do, right? We put in everything we've got. And so then because we want those results and then it doesn't equal,
Right.
doesn't equal. And it's also so challenging as a parent to not see our kids as a reflection, as a mirror
Right.
of ourselves. I have that so badly a lot of the time. I have to consciously tell myself, like, she is not a mirror. She is a human,
It's their own person who makes their own choices, regardless of because we talk about this, when there's tragedies and things, they're quick to blame adults in their lives. And I think that's not fair to those adults. Sometimes, yes, there is trauma and there's reasons behind it, but you could be an excellent parent and have a child that makes terrible choices. And you can be a terrible parent and have a child that makes excellent choices. You kind of just hope it all works out. But yeah, I have a friend who used to say that when her kids were really doing well, they were a reflection of her parenting. And when they were struggling, she's like, they're a reflection of the society. Like it was just her way of dealing with it because you feel like, yeah, you think your effort should equal the results. And it's not always the
Yeah,
case. They're their own person and they're going to make their own choices.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's so tempting though, as a parent, to look at our children as a reflection and then go, wait a minute, now am I to blame? Now am I now do I get credit? Now is it my fault? Right.
Right.
And gosh, that truth is right in the middle, which is we don't have any control. We like to
No.
think no
Right.
control over it whatsoever. And yes, we do the things that we think are right for our children because that's who we are. And that's who we want to be as parents and people and humans in the world and society. But it is not going to be an even reflection with our
Correct.
kids. And that's so hard to consciously have to think about and go, oh, darn it, I wish. I wish that wasn't true.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminded me of Oh, the Lion King, the beginning of the Lion King, where the little Simba is like waking up his dad, and the mom says, "Your son's awake," and he says, "Before sunrise, he's your son."
Yes.
That,
Yes.
oh, you get that from, from my
Yep.
dad. All of that. So yeah, it is so difficult. But it's really, really awesome to hear your story and your shared experience of this, because you're continuing to do the work and help your child and your children to have opportunities for them to do the work, right?
Right.
And that's the most important thing. You're providing those opportunities, and it's just very, very inspiring, especially uh, you're very real about how challenging it is, because it is. That's real life. It is hard. And I think that, with counseling, I think counseling doesn't get talked about enough in general, but I think when it does, sometimes it does feel like that, magic wand
Yep.
situation. I think it's going to be like, it's just for now until things get better, or, oh, it's just, uh, we should have different results by now, things like that.
Sure.
And it
Well,
just,
sometimes we don't want to deal with some of the stuff that we need to deal with, right? So I was listening to a show earlier, and the girl that they were interviewing, she said that she started seeing a therapist, and the therapist asked her a question, and she did not like the question, so she quit. She quit therapy because she said, "I didn't like being challenged and thinking about this situation the way she
Hmm.
presented it." And then later on went back to therapy because she realized she needed to work through some stuff, right? So it's one of those things where it's sometimes a reflection that you don't want to see, or things you don't want to unearth, and stuff that we've buried or worked our way through or felt like we've just moved past that need to be dealt with. And so, yeah, and I think there's the stigma, right, on therapy, right, that only people who have problems need therapy, right? Well, generally the people that I know that are the most successful are people who are doing therapy because they're doing the work to get through that kind of stuff, to figure out how to have healthy relationships with people. So it's that balance of knowing that it's good for you, but like being afraid to say, like, because society has made mental health just seem like a weakness, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, it's just like going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, fit people go to the gym. So, so to say, oh, well, only unhealthy people go to the gym so they lose weight, like that seems to be kind of the sense around mental health. But the truth is that, like, the most fit people are the people who are in the gym, and the
Correct.
most mentally healthy people are the people who are in therapy.
That makes a lot
um,
of sense. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because people don't just stop going to the gym once you get, because I always joke that, like, I'm only here till I'm skinny. Like, I'm not coming back after that, you know? But I can't just stay that way. You got to do the work, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Wonderful. I love this discussion.
Mhm.
So, Angela, if you could give one suggestion to somebody who might be on the fence about starting counseling for themselves, for their kiddos, what suggestion might you give to that?
Say do it. I mean, I know it sounds like a cheesy answer, but it's worth the work. I have learned so much through my kiddo going to therapy specifically. There's just one tactic real quick that I learned that I would have never thought about, but he doesn't like being asked to do something on demand. So I realized that I don't like that either. I don't like when someone interrupts my day and says, "Stop what you're doing and do this." And so it wasn't working for my kiddo to say, "Hey, I need you to go empty the trash right now." And this therapist pointed out, like, as a human being, we don't necessarily like that. And that has changed our lives in my house. Like, it has changed our lives. It's just the silliest thing I had never thought of. But now
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, in 20 minutes, or when you're done with that game, or when you finish this thing, can you please?" It's not always perfect. He doesn't always say, "Yes, mom, whatever you'd like." But more often than not, it doesn't end up in a huge fight or attitude, and I'm like, that alone has been like a life changer for us. And that's just one example. There have been so many things that, and I see these kids here, these kids are going to therapy to do the work because there's so much trauma that goes on. Kids with food issues at 3 years old, because of the trauma they've experienced. It's worth it for these kids to have the most successful lives. And same with adults. I mean, honestly, it's no different. We all have stuff that we have to work through, but yeah, do the work. It's worth it. It's just like getting physically healthy, do the work.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I love that. And how true, we don't, I'm very task oriented as well, right? And so if I'm in the middle of a task, I can't hear you. I can't do anything other than that task. And our kids are the same way. And what a great way to model, task completion, because in the same breath that we're saying, take out the trash right now, we're also saying, you didn't even finish cleaning up your room. So we're doing the same, and so I love that because it's a consistency of message. Like, yep, finish the task you're on, move on to the next task. So awesome. That is a great, great tip.
Absolutely. I am Angela Downing and I need a counselor.
Awesome.
Awesome. Me too. So does Chrissa.
We all
We-
do.
We all do. Absolutely. Love it. Okay, so how can people, if they want to donate money or if they want to volunteer, how do they get in touch with you, or how do they get in touch with Families Helping Families so they can help?
The best way to reach us is to go to our website. The website is familieshelpingfamiliesof.iowa.org, or just go to Google, type in Families Helping Families of Iowa. There are other Families Helping Families. They're not associated with us. So we're our own entity. Or they can reach out to me. My email is office@FHF, as in Families Helping Families, IA.org, or give us a call. It's all on the Google. So they can reach out, and there's a contact us form, see about the programs we do on our website, and any questions can be directed towards me.
Awesome.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing out there in the community. It really does make a difference. It really, really does. And I'm surprised that you guys are only a staff of 2. I did not know
Yeah.
the scope of your events.
Sometimes, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela, for being
Yes.
here.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So if you are in Iowa and you or your kiddos could benefit from mental health counseling or in-home behavioral health counseling, any child in Iowa that is in foster placement or has been adopted in the state of Iowa is eligible for Iowa Medicaid until they're 18 or 19, I think. And so BHIS, behavioral health intervention, is a free service. Therapy is also free when kiddos qualify for Medicaid. So there are some challenges with consent forms and things like that to be addressed, but we've got some really, really great resources here in Iowa to help people overcome those challenges. So BHIS is great for if you've got a lot of kiddos in your household also, because you don't have to go anywhere for those appointments. Your BHIS counselor will come to you and involve all of the children in the household, not only the one child that might be in services. So give us a call at 800-531-4236.
And like Julie mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we post new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. So save up your laundry or whatever task you hate doing and listen to us on Sundays while you get that done. And then we can help convince you to reach out to a counselor, to reach out to a resource that we had as a guest that week as well. And if you have any questions for us, you can reach us on our Facebook page at You Need a Counselor Podcast, or on our Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast on there as well. And I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you. Bye.